Hello everyone, this is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another week of YouTube videos. Every week y'all send in your questions and every week I answer one. Just one. I pick one in the queue and we go through bit by bit. But y'all are phenomenal. Y'all are always sending in great questions and I just love this community. So thanks for being a part of it. And if you're new, and this is the first video you have ever watched, well, thanks for being here. Just feel free. There's tons of video and free content and information and awesome way to just grow in your non-physical connections and your understanding of your spiritual integrated life and what that looks like. There's just awesome resources here. So feel free to share and like and comment and send in your questions and spread the love in any inspired way that you may have. My website is themodernshaman.net, and I always just recommend that if you don't know me or don't know what I'm about or this type of community, feel free to go to my website and check it out and see kind of where you feel led. I teach classes, I tour and lecture, as well as have one-on-one sessions on video, Skype, as well as phone and in person here in the office. There's lots of ways that you can kind of reach out and feel like you're being served and met in whatever way feels resonant for you. So let's get to the question of the week. Okay. This one, she titled it. She sent me a question. It has a title, Imagination versus Intuition. Okay. So it says, Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for your videos. I can't wait to take your classes. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you're gonna take them. It's the next step. That's the next leveling up. I have learned so much from you over the years. My question is about my imagination. How do I know when what I'm thinking or feeling is something that is just my imagination versus my intuition? I have an overactive imagination, it seems, and sometimes it haunts me, and I don't know what to trust. Can you give any guidance on the difference between imagination and intuition? You know what? I'm going to be real with you. This question is probably one of the top 5 questions that comes up every time I'm touring and lecturing and doing seminars, and there's a Q&A time at the end. Inevitably, if we've been practicing our gifts, been practicing going through the meditations or any sort of initiation to open your clairvoyance, your third eye, this question always seems to come up from an audience member. So I think so many people will resonate with this question. I'm surprised I don't have a video on it yet. I don't think I do in the archives at all. I'd have to go back over the years, but I don't think anyone has ever asked it on a YouTube dialogue question until you. But it's so relevant because this is actually somebody asked this maybe like last weekend. Somebody asked this, and you know what? I got cut off and I didn't like the way that energy ended, and I didn't see that person after the lecture. It was like standing room only in that room, and I didn't see where she went after I gave that seminar, so I didn't get to really answer her question in depth. So maybe this is why Spirit brought it up on this video, because I had this itching really in me of like, I didn't fully get to answer that question for her. And then you ask it and it's the next one in the queue in the video folder, which is hilarious. That's the way Spirit works, right? Okay. So let's talk about it. There's a few different ways. The thing is, in terms of your internal space, meaning your third eye, your clairvoyant vision, the visions that we see without our material human eyes, through our ocular vision, right? If you close your eyes and you see something, essentially you are using the imaginary realm, okay? This is the action of the third eye, whether it's daydreaming, whether it's dreaming at night, whether it's psychic premonition or clairvoyance. these are all activities that happen within the realm of the imagination, meaning it seems imaginary. It is not through our literal reality that we're seeing through human eyes. Okay? So in that way, it is an imaginary realm. Now, not all imaginary visions or things that you see through your third eye are premonitions, are clairvoyant visions, are past life visions. Not all of what you see has the density and momentum of a future probability, okay? And this is the differential that I feel like you're really asking about. Like, how do I know when what I'm seeing is something that is going to happen in the future, or something that I should speak out in warning to someone else? This type of thing. How do I know what has a sense of weight or importance for me in terms of the visioning? Okay, and this is a different type of distinction. And it's not that the imagery is always showing you that distinction. It's the feeling tone, it's the density of the energy, it's the other psychic senses that you can utilize to get what is actually being communicated from the vision that you're seeing. And so what happens with psychic senses, okay, when you start learning all of the different ways that we are picking up information from the non-physical realm, the difference between our human senses is that the psychic senses, our intuitive senses, overlap. They feed into each other, okay? And this is similar to in a poetic term, it's called synesthesia, if you've ever learned that in terms of literary analysis or poetic analysis, where they use one sense to describe another sense, okay? Now, in the non-physical realm, because it's multidimensional, they're overlapping, overlayered. This is the way that we experience them. So when it comes to, say, a vision that you have, let's say a premonition, okay? So maybe you're talking with someone and they're telling you about a new guy that they met, and they're all excited and they're like sharing with you, and you get a quick flash of an argument, a fight, an ending of a relationship. It comes just like this, quick little flash of it in your mind's eye, okay? This is often how premonition visions come to us. It's a quick little flash of imagery. Oftentimes it happens so quickly that it feels like a thought and not a vision, but there is actual imagery with it, like we see a person and a person fighting. But the movie is playing so quickly in our head, or we're so used to living through life this way, that we don't hit pause, so we don't even know that we're actually seeing a vision. A lot of times it comes that quick. They're talking and it's happening on top of hearing them talk and receiving all that they're saying. So there's a multiple layer of, and this is typically how it comes in with our intuitive senses, multiple layer of information that you're receiving. You're receiving them being excited about the relationship and this energy here, and then you see what's coming down the road. Okay, now let's say that happens, and then you go, wait a minute, was that my imagination imagining the ending to it, or was that a premonition? Okay, so what happens with imagination is that when you are imagining something, there's a sense of creation to it, and you're involved in the creation. When there's a sense of premonition, it comes up on its own volition, and it's energy-based, meaning they're sharing with you something and suddenly you see this ending to it. It also communicates a sense of like, there may be this is how it's going to end, or this is where it's going. It communicates an overall message, and typically it doesn't have a sense of like paranoid, chaotic energy to it. When we move into imaginary experiences from fear, from when we're creating a sense of fearful options for ourselves, like, oh my gosh, this could happen, or these worried kind of imaginary experiences. This is not a premonition. This is not moving into, this is you making up a sense of realities or possibilities that are out there, and a lot of times they are fed from your own energy of fear and chaos. This is different, okay? And this is, I think, what you're talking about when you said sometimes it haunts me and I don't know what to trust. So oftentimes when we are already, and you'll have to notice where you are energetically, in an energy of fear or worry or paranoia, then we will create a sense of possibilities and see, if we are clairvoyant, we will see the imagery associated with those possibilities. So we may see, oh my gosh, it could go like this and this could happen. Oh my gosh, it could go like this and this and this. And oh, now that's different than if your friend comes up to you and she's talking to you and she's all excited and you're all excited and you just get the, it just flashes in. Versus if she's talking and then you feel triggered of your past experiences when you were excited about so-and-so and it ended badly. And then you start seeing images of your bad breakup. And this is not a premonition. This is your own sense of triggered energy reminding you. So there's a difference, and you can feel that it either comes up on its own or there's a sense of energy in itself of fear, paranoia, and this anxiety or worry. And you have to feel into the emotional energy of that, okay? There is a distance, almost like an observer when it comes to premonitions. They're out there almost in like a thought bubble where they just kind of pop up and they go. You're aware, there they are. So I would tune into your sense of emotional energy with it and where you're starting from. Like if you were already happy-go-lucky and then suddenly this imagery comes up as an omen or a forewarning, and it feels like a forewarning. It doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared already, and then here comes the visions with what I'm already scared of. Do you see the difference? It's like creating it versus it coming up. I'll give you an example. So I was doing a third eye practice with my kids one time in the car. We were like driving home from school. I had just picked them up from school. And they're in the back of the car and I had to get gas. And so I pulled over and they were kind of fighting and complaining. And there's 3 kids all stacked in the back of this little Toyota Highlander. So it was tight back there. And I was like, okay, well, let's do a third eye practice. This is what psychic mama comes up with. So I said, all right, why don't we see if we can do some past life viewing? So I talked them into just closing their eyes and setting the intention to see a past life. Let's get quiet. Let's see what arises. So it was real simple, just simply that, like setting the intention, closing your eyes, and seeing and noticing and observing as the independent observer what you see. Then we'll talk about it. So each of the kids did it. And my youngest, she was probably like 3. She wasn't really capable of conversating about it. But so my oldest, afterwards, he was like, oh, I saw a vision. I saw myself in the middle seat of this airplane. I was a teenage girl. The airplane, there was a storm. It was fine outside, but then it was stormy. And then the plane kind of started doing these backflips, and then one of the wings got hit with a lightning bolt, and then we went into the sea. So he gives this explanation, and he remembers where he was sitting and the color of the shirt that the lady next to him was wearing, and he just kind of gives these details of things that he was seeing. Okay, that's a past life vision. There's an energy to it that didn't feel like he created that from a sense of worry or like, oh, I'm afraid of planes, or I'm afraid of, it's just kind of like, oh, that's what came up. Then I asked my other son who was sitting next to him, what did you see? He said, oh, I was in the Titanic and I was sitting there and I was wanting a lifeboat really bad. So he gives into all of these details about the Titanic. And granted, okay, from a mature brain, we're like, okay, he's making that up. He's seen the movie The Titanic or read something about it in school. And he's basically word for word giving me the description of people that he's like, oh, there's an iceberg ahead. And, you know, he's making these words that are very, very clearly taught to him in some sort of class. Now, there's a clear distinction here from a sense of imagination and creating from an energy of like, ooh, I want to share a story too. Ooh, I'm already feeling like, what's a cool past life story, right? Versus a very plain, a lot of times your intuition has a very flat, plain, simple view of things. It's not inflated. It's not sensationalized. It's very normalized. It's very organic. It's very natural. It's almost so much so that we miss it as an actual intuition, as an actual speech or communication from the other side, as our higher self giving us guidance, because it's so flat and plain. I was just sitting here. I was in the middle seat. The lady next to me was wearing this purple shirt with a collar that kind of had a flap on it that stuck out a little bit over onto my shoulder, and it felt like it was touching me all the time. It's just simple things about life like that. And this is the way that when our intuition comes in, it has a flat energy to it that doesn't feel sensationalized like imagination does, right? Imagination has a play and etherealism to it that's very like, ooh, what about this and this and this? And it moves like that, kind of like a dreamscape where, oh, we might go here and then we fly here and then we play here. It moves very sensationalized. I guess that's the best way. It's in an energy that feels like it's creating instead of showing you what already is. Okay? Now this does take practice paying attention to, because the energies sometimes are subtle, but there's also a sense of density. Like when I feel into the difference between a possibility or a probability. So if all things are possible, then all things have a sense of existence to them, but not everything is probable. It doesn't always have the same weight to it. So when I'm looking at something for the future, say for instance, the way that I can tell the difference is there's a literal probability, a weight, a density to something that has more energy in it, more volition to being created. So the way that I would explain this best would be like if you take a piece of tracing paper, right? And it's like that transparent tracing paper. We've all seen it. And you're tracing a little stick figure and you trace it and you hold it up and there's so much transparency. It's like you can see it, like, okay, there's one possibility. There's one possibility. But say you take 10 sheets of tracing paper with the same stick figure on it, overlaid, and you hold them all up. The opacity is different. It's denser. There's a thickness now to the pages being laid on top of each other. This has more probability. This has a weight to it that's materializing into form, more so than just an idea, than just a possibility. And to me, when I look at probable futures, probable manifestations of where you're going, there's a thickness to the energy that feels like it's a practiced thought. Every thought may just be one sheet of tracing paper, but if you've thought that thought over and over and over, you're layering those pieces of tracing paper on top of each other to where they become dense, they become materialized, they come into form. And feeling into the energy of that from your psychic senses, you may see many possibilities and probabilities from your imaginary realm, meaning the creation space internally in your vision. But no matter what you see, some of them will have more density, more weight, more probability towards what's being created, okay? So that's another way to differentiate between a sense of imagination and an actual premonition, or something that feels like it's real. It's being shown to you in terms of a probability and not just a possibility. Does that make sense? Okay. There's a lot of ways to differentiate here. And depending on your predominant kind of way that you receive information from the non-physical, I would be inclusive of all of those things, feeling into the weight of whether it feels probable and not just possible, noticing the difference of, did it come to you on its own volition, or did it feel like you almost like had to fan it up, like fanning a fire, like creating a sense of the story of the Titanic versus just telling a flat story like a book, like it's just It is what it is. It's what I saw. I didn't say anything crazy. I just saw a fight. You didn't look happy. You walked away. Saying it flat, simple as it is. Paying attention to these different spaces. Even though it's always in the internal third eye, meaning it's not something that you're actually seeing with your human eyes, it is the same internal space, but it is a very different feeling space from your multidimensional senses. I hope that is helpful to you. I hope you can take it and it gives you a sense of clarity and peace with all the information that you're receiving. Bye, you guys. We'll be back here next week.